Hey there, you're listening to Yakkin with Nick. I am Nick Hazelton, and I have a guest today, but I would just wanted to say, guys, yeah, I haven't put out any shows, and I haven't explained that. But I'm just so crazy and mixing up things in my life and trying to do things different ways. I'm not very settled, and it's just too much going on for me to, like, keep people up. But I'll definitely be trying to keep up content throughout the next few months, and I hope that you can be patient with me as I try to make things work out. But today I have Scott Hebert on with me today, and I'm pretty excited about this because I was actually thinking about Stoicism earlier today and how I was really thinking, I need this to milk these goats today because I just hate goats and they're just so annoying. And it really helped. I was able to recognize that I was frustrated with these goats and that they kept kicking off the milk pump nipples. And so I was able to think, all right, I can't control that they're doing that, right? I can hold on to their feet, but eventually, they're going to try to fight me, right? And what am I going to do about it? Just try to make sure that they don't contaminate the food pump nipples with their shitty feet, because that would be really bad. And that was the only job I had, so I focused on that. And anyway, that's how I use Stoicism today. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Other than the goat thing.
Yeah, the goat thing was kind of annoying. Otherwise, I've had a pretty good day. Yeah, so we haven't talked to you in a long time. I think before I even started Yakkin with Nick, I recorded that show. I think it's episode 6.
Yeah, we recorded that in like December, the middle of December. I was probably I had probably posted like 2 shows or something. Or maybe I had 5 shows. Maybe I started with like 5 shows. But yeah, that would have been like the first couple of weeks that I had my show out.
Yeah. And it was really cool. I was really excited when you started it up because there's just nobody talking about it. I think Massimo, I can't say his last name.
Piliucci?
I should know that. I took Italian in high school. I can't say it.
Piliucci. I just pretend, like if I have to say something in Italian, I just pretend I'm talking like Mario. It's a me, Mario.
Yeah, so he's like the only guy who like has a podcast that talks about it anymore. And then the Painted Porch went under. And I was like,
yeah. Massimo actually just had a book come out. Did you know that?
I think I saw that. I think you posted it on Instagram and I saw it or something.
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. But keep going. We talk podcasts.
But I was kind of bummed because I felt like, well, I'm so small and I'm not focused on Stoicism. Like, I can maybe help out the anarcho-capitalist, a group of people with Stoicism. But it's like, man, there needs to be a mainstream person doing this. And so I was really excited when you came out with Stoic Metal. I was like, oh, this is perfect. And I listened to it. I'm like, oh, this is exciting because I don't know. I really like the format that you're using, doing short episodes and keeping it really focused because I think that's just so valuable. And it's just not out there. You're fulfilling that niche, and I think it's really cool. So I don't mean to inflate your ego too much, but I really like your podcast.
That's okay. It's my ego's huge already, so you can't bump it up anymore.
Well, good. So I wanted to talk to you because we talked a lot about just kind of the basics of Stoicism last time. I've been talking about some of the practices, and I thought it would be interesting to hear more about how you got into Stoicism because I like hearing people's stories. I think it's interesting. It gives a more it shows you, hey, this is how you can apply it to your life. This is how I did it, and this is where I struggled. And yeah, it's hard because we're all people, and none of us are perfect, right? We all have our crazy story. So I wanted to hear that from you. And you have an interesting one. You've done some cool stuff. You used to be a cage fighter.
Yeah, did that for a little bit. I did a lot of I've done a lot of things. It's really weird. Like I'm 29 now, but yeah, I've definitely had some life experiences, and like it's not like I was ever trying to do like I was thinking like, oh, I'm going to do all this crazy shit. It was just like, oh, just go to the next day, right? Just the next day and the next day, and then it's just like after whatever 10 years, all of a sudden you're just like look back and you're like, oh shit, like that was I guess that is kind of a crazy ride, right? It's a little bit different, but yeah, right out of high school I was really fat and nerdy and geeky and just socially awkward, and I was 220 pounds right out of high school, and so. I was really kind of more, I don't know, just a loner and stuff before like the last couple of years of high school. And then the last couple of years of high school, I just started drinking and partying, and that was really fun. Like going out and meeting girls and being social, right? It was awesome. So I started doing that. And then right after high school, I started doing MMA fighting. My buddy wanted to go to a gym, and he quit after like 2 months, and I kept going for 6 years. I ended up losing 80 pounds. I had 6 amateur MMA fights. I did a whole bunch of submission wrestling tournaments, and then after that, I was kind of like, I did it more of as a weight loss thing, not as like I was never going to try to like do it as like a professional career or anything. I just kind of was in the gym, and then they're like, hey, do you want to fight? And I was like, yeah, sure, sure. So then I lost my first fight, and then I was like, well, like I want to be a winner now, right? So I kept doing it until I was like a winner. So that was good. And then after fighting, I kind of wanted to find something with like a little bit more meaning. Like I don't know, fighting came to a dead end. It was like I had these skills, and I was like, I wasn't like that great at fighting, but I was better than when I first started. But like I didn't have any way to make any money off of those skills, so I was just like, well, this was kind of like not a waste of time, but almost a waste of time, right? Could have been a lot more productive doing something. And so I found out about all this crazy regenerative agriculture and permaculture and small scale farming, and I was thinking I want to do that, but I'm going to figure out a way to make money doing it, right? So then I found out about small farms, and then I started my farm, and then now I've been doing that for the past year and a half.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so crazy, different stuff. And then the Stoicism thing came up because do you know the difference between a lowercase s Stoic and a capital S Stoic?
No, I don't.
Okay, so in our common vernacular, a lowercase s Stoic means someone who has like a stiff upper lip and like represses or suppresses their emotions. It's become detached from what an uppercase s Stoic is, which is like the Stoic philosophy from ancient Greece. Okay, so they kind of have different meanings, and they get muddled together. So when I was first found out about Stoicism, like most people, I heard about like the lowercase s Stoic, like people acting like without kind of emotions a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I seen these guys being like calm in the ring when they were fighting, and I just knew it was a better way to operate. And so that's what I tried to do. I just tried to, when I was fighting, because I like panicked in my first couple fights and like just quit basically. And I was trying to look for a better way to like basically become a winner. And so I knew that I had to like deal with my destructive emotions. And so I kind of found out about this dichotomy of control thing in fighting. And through being in fighting, I just like mastered that dichotomy of control. But I wasn't confused about like that I was supposed to be emotionless. I understood that I was just supposed to like deal with my shit right away. And like that's what Stoicism was. So then when I finally got into like the uppercase S Stoicism, that's kind of when like then it was just like spiral down the rabbit hole, I guess. I fell down the rabbit hole of it after that, right? And then it also helped that there was some guys like Ryan Holiday wrote The Obstacle is the Way, and I read that. It came out in 2014, but I would have read it I think I would have read it at the very beginning of 2016. So that helped, and then he had another book come out that was called The Daily Stoic, which is really good. And then I just like I said, just fell down the rabbit hole, and it's just been like I had read Epictetus's Enchiridion and Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, and then I was like, this is pretty cool, and then I was looking for a podcast about it, right? Mm-hmm. Because I like listening to podcasts and stuff, and there wasn't anything, and I thought, well, that sucks. But because I started my farm, I knew that now that I know that if you have a problem, like, so I went and looked for this podcast, right? And it didn't exist. So that's a problem. And I knew that if I had that problem, that there was probably going to be other people that also had that problem, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, can I be the person that does this podcast? And well, no, the answer is no, like not really. I had only read the Enchiridion, I had only read Meditations, and like 2 of Ryan Holiday's books, which are like, they're good books and stuff, but they're not like academic studies into Stoicism. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I just felt like really, I was just like, oh no, I can't do that. I can't be the person that does that show. And then I thought, well, like, what would let me have the show? And I was like, well, there's three main older guys, right? Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca. And so Seneca's got letters to a Stoic. That's his book. It's like a collection of 120 letters that he wrote to this guy. Marcus Aurelius has Meditations, and Epictetus has the Enchiridion and the Discourses. And so I said, well, I can't fucking start this until I read at least all of these, right? So I read all those, and then I started thinking about what's the one, like, because I'm coming at it from a different angle. Like, I'm not an academic. I can't pretend to be a fucking academic. No one's gonna listen to that show because it's just gonna be fake, right? So I thought, what's the one show that I'm uniquely qualified to host? Like, what's the one show about Stoicism that I, Scott Hebert, could make? And so that's how it ended up being. And I wanted it to be like a martial arts class for my mind because I really like teaching and I really like coaching when I was doing fighting and MMA. And so I really wanted it to be like when I was running a martial arts class, you come to the gym, we drill that technique, right? And then we go into sparring or rolling or whatever you want to call it, and you try to implement those techniques. And that's how you fucking learn, right? So with my show, I present a quote or something, and then I drill it into your mind with examples from my life, boom, 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 and then set you off to go do it by yourself.
Yeah. I really like that, and I think it makes sense. I've had a little bit of martial arts training, so I like the comparison and the metaphor. I thought that was really helpful for me to understand it.
Yeah, well, like back in the day, those guys they had schools and stuff, different schools of philosophy, but it wouldn't have been the same schools. Like schools now are such fucking bullshit. It's academics, and they got to go to. I mean, obviously, don't have to put the caveat on it that there is good schools and there is good teachers and shit, but this would have been very different. This would, like, back in the day, they would have been like full immersion in there. You know what I'm saying? They would have been training a lot more than they were studying. We have so much more access to books and paper. I probably have more access to more I do have more access to everything that's been ever written about Stoicism than all of those ancient guys probably had living in the time when Stoicism went in its heyday, right? So I don't know. I think people come at it from the angle of like they're trying to study it, but I think that if you're going to implement it as a philosophy of life, which means you're living it, you need to be training it. Because if you study something like for a math test, like if we study for a math test and you get the wrong answer, that just means you're fucking wrong. But if we're training something and something didn't work out or you fuck up, that's okay. We're training, right? You're obviously trying to execute to the best of your ability every time, but it's just not going to happen. It's like life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really powerful, and I really like it because I really don't like the comparison to school. I'm not a big fan at all. So I like that. I don't know. It is training, right? And it really is because it's sharpening a skill set, right? These are tools that you use. It's like jujitsu when you're rolling. Somebody's trying to pull this move on you. Oh, well, you know the counter to that. It's negative visualization or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really powerful. I like thinking about it that way too.
Yeah, me too. I think it's really easy for like people to see in their head, and it's also, I think it makes it funner. Like, honestly, I think it makes it funner just to listen about it rather than me being like, well, in 133 BC, right, and like do that. So I don't know. That was kind of So then that was kind of how I like got into Stoicism and found out about it, and that's kind of how the whole show came about. And then I got 23 episodes in, and then I wanted to like when I first started it, I sent it out to like a couple people and stuff, right? Like test episodes and stuff, but like all your friends are just going to tell you that it's good, right?
Yeah.
Like they're going to be like, yeah, good. Like just fucking do it, man. But like after 23 episodes out, I had like it was going pretty well and stuff. Like I had like good downloads and it was neat, right? People are like emailing me, but I had lots of feedback. And so then I kind of structured my show and I just changed the little things. I changed like my intro and just did little things like that. But yeah, I've done weekly shows every single Monday since the end of November, since basically the beginning of December. So I'm pretty proud of that. Haven't missed one yet. So it's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. And I think it's really nice. I like to I get up and I come inside and I download my stuff after I feed all my animals, and then I see that little Stoic medal pop up. I'm like, yes, Monday, 12 o'clock. Perfect. It's perfect timing because it's the start of the week, and I get motivated to do stuff. And I'm kind of changed a little bit of this direction. Anyway, Now I forgot where I was going. That's terrible. I shouldn't acknowledge when I'm making a segue. But okay, this is what I think I was saying is I found that it's the more that I struggle, the more that I come to Stoicism, and it kind of like comes back and forth. I've noticed that kind of I don't know, cycle or whatever. Like as things are going good, like I'm making money at the farm and things are going the right way. It's whatever's happening. I don't need stoicism, so I'm like, keep going. And then something hits me, and I'm like, that really sucks. And another thing hits me because I make a mistake because I was thinking about it or something. And it's kind of I'm like, oh wait, stoicism, bring it back. And it's mostly thinking about that obstacle. Being
Obstacles away.
But I don't remember how that came into my mind. But I thought that was really powerful. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently.
Have you been reading that? You've been reading Ryan Holiday's book?
Yes, I have been reading it. I've been listening to it on the audiobook. I haven't picked it up for a couple days, but I'll have to pick it up now that I'm thinking about it again. And I'm really enjoying it. It's interesting because he's coming at it from this idea of being successful, is what it kind of sounds like to me. And that's something that I think about as an entrepreneur, right? Those kind of ups and downs of an entrepreneur business, right? Because this is farming, especially, right? Trying to sell a certain product, it's hard to do that, and so it's really challenging.
Definitely.
I think that's where it's really powerful. So I like it I like the way he's writing it.
Ryan, that book is not like about Stoicism particularly. It's more about a Stoic concept. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like the examples that he's using aren't like necessarily people that like follow Stoicism or anything, but the way that he's got his book divided up into 3 different sections, which is perception, action, and will. So the perception to like see how things are in reality, not fucking in your own head, right? The action to like perception, action, will. So the action to take the right action, and then the will to be strong and to weather it out. But yeah, I really like that book. I think it's a really good kind of introduction to a little bit of the philosophy of the basics of kind of the dichotomy of control.
Yeah, I think that's a good part. The thing to think about, and that's what we kind of focused on our last show. Yeah. And you were talking about you've learned a little bit more, or a lot more.
Yeah.
And I'm still like I feel like I can explain the basics of Stoicism to anybody because I've done a few presentations on it. I can do it and I can kind of get you started with it. But I think that I still lack some. It's been I've known about it for a while, but I think that my irregular application of it has made it kind of rough getting the hang of it. So I'm interested in hearing what, like, I get the things like dichotomy of control, using negative visualization. I get a lot of those pieces to it, but do you think that there's something I might be missing, or
probably like there's probably a whole bunch of shit. It's just it's the one hard thing is that even if you go to the old text and stuff, it's not structured where it's like it's really straightforward. Like it's not like a list where it's like these are the central themes of Stoicism, right? A, B, C, D. It's kind of just like stuff people have all picked out, and it tends to be almost more of a web, I would say, because these things are interconnected, right? But the Stoics believed that virtue is the sole good, okay? Mm-hmm. And what they meant by virtue is having an excellent character. So there's 4 main virtues. So there's 4 main things that make up an excellent character. There's wisdom, that's probably the biggest one, courage, discipline, and justice. And I think that those are the biggest things, because with Stoicism, it's always supposed to be pushing towards the good and to be a good character. Like you're not being calm and stuff and having the obstacles be the way to like just to treat people like shit. You're doing this to be a good person, right? You're doing this to make the correct actions. So I think that's a really big one, is that just kind of how that all unfolds like that.
Yeah. Wow. I am not actually. I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard because like it says like they use the word like virtue all the time, and it's not like we just don't have that word in our vernacular. Like we just don't. You and I don't use that word at all. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought like when I first heard virtue and I was like looking it up on the internet or whatever, like I thought, I don't know, I remember having a video game when I was like a kid, like an old one on whatever computer, and like I had like a little knight guy. It was like a role playing game or whatever, and like virtues was like I was like clicking up the points on him. You know what I mean? Like those were all like the good qualities on my guy. So I'm like virtue, like that's kind of weird. Like virtues is so good. I don't know. I was just found it like really. I just found it really strange, right? And okay, and then one other thing that we can talk about is that the ancient Stoics divided up Stoicism into 3 different parts. Okay, logic, physics, and ethics. Right?
Right. I'm familiar with that.
Okay. So what they meant by and most of what we know about Stoicism is like most of like what me and you would talk about would have been like the ethics part of it, how to like act and treat people. But what they meant by those other things was actually in Massimo's new book, he does a really good job of kind of dissecting it. But they're talking about a little bit different things. But what basically the overarching thing is that they were saying is that it's a big fucking crazy world and there's different parts to it. And you got to know about other things to know how to treat people well. Right?
Right.
So there's other things that you can learn about that will aid you in having a virtuous life or developing an excellent character.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it that frames it in a new way for me. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I've pretty much ignored the logic and
that's what I did too. I've seen it, and I was like I'm sure one of the first times that I like tried to look into Stoicism, I would have looked it up on Wikipedia, and I seen like logic, physics, ethics, and I just thought, fuck that, that's weird. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't used to read or anything, so it wasn't like. If I seen something and it was weird, I would just stop. Like I used to not read books or anything. So, yeah. So if something was weird, I wouldn't like investigate into it. I was just like, oh, this is different. I'm going to go watch TV.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. That's the same way I kind of am. I do a lot more reading now, but yeah.
It's tough. It's tough not giving it to those distractions.
I know. It's terrible. It's like the worst thing that you can do is like, don't pay attention to that. But I mean, it was just a turn off for me. And I kind of figured, well, I mean, these guys, what did they know about the natural world that was.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Ago.
But, yeah, too. But yeah, they were thinking about, they were just doing their best. That's what Stoicism is about. It's about doing your best you can at the time. And sometimes your world's going to be fucking falling apart all around and everything's going to go terrible. And just because you act good doesn't necessarily mean you're even going to have good results. But like that's what it's about. It's about doing your best at all times, having a good character at all times. And that's what those guys were doing at the time, right? They were doing what they thought was the best. And the other thing too is that they also would have had to compete against different schools, like students leaving to go to other schools. So they would have had to make theirs like fun. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they would have had to make their school fun so people stayed around. Like it would have been the same thing about like training now at like a martial arts gym. So I don't know. It's kind of it's just interesting, all of it put together.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really interested in the way they're splitting up virtue, because that makes it more interesting. Because yeah. I've told people, and on this show, I think I've said I don't like the idea of virtue because my understanding of it is kind of like be dutiful, right? That's kind of like my mind. But now that I like think about it, I'm kind of oh, that's kind of a stereotype, Nick. You're falling for that.
Yeah. No, we used the wrong word. You got to think about it like, and this is honestly taken me probably 6 months to change it. Where when I see virtue now, I think about excellent character. Like before I was still thinking that it was this weird concept of virtue. Like I didn't understand what it really meant. But that's what they're driving towards is excellent character. Cool. There's one word, arete. Okay, Arete, and it's a Greek word, and now I'm going to blank on what I'm saying, but it means like to live. I got to look it up. I forget. Lost where I was going. Oh, it means like virtue or excellence. That's what we're talking about with like with everything. And so there's an example from Donald Robertson's book where a horse. Okay, so how does a horse have arete? Well, if a horse can run really fast and it's doing all the things that a horse would do, then it would have arete. If the horse was weak and a shitty horse, right, you couldn't ride it or something, then it doesn't have arete. But because we're rational and social animals, we have what's it called? We have like a responsibility to be rational, which means always doing good, and we also have a responsibility to be social. So if I have strong arete, if I'm living the virtuous life, that means that I'm acting towards the good because I'm being rational, and that I'm being social, as in a good member of my family and community, and hopefully a citizen of the world.
Okay. No, that's very interesting, and I see some of the undertones of kind of obligation to one's. I can see where that comes from, but I like it. I like the way it's phrased that way because it makes a lot of sense to me. Because I'm a part of these groups. I'd like to be a good member of them, and I am a rational being. I'd like to think I use my intelligence, and I'd like to use it very, in the right way. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think so too. A lot of there's nothing really outside of Stoicism where there's nothing I've seen so far where I'm like, where once I've gotten into it, I'm like, oh, that's really weird. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff at the beginning that I thought where I'm like, oh, that's fucking strange. But now that I'm like into it, I'm like, oh, I'm doing this. Like, they also have a phrase that's living within accordance with nature.
Uh-huh.
And they're not talking about like going outside and being naked and running around the woods. They're talking about living a life free of contradictions for yourself. So if you were working at a confined yak slaughtery or a confined yak farm, right? Obviously that you wouldn't be within your according to your nature, right?
Right.
There's someone else that could probably work at the confined yak farm, but like for you personally, right? That would probably be like the worst thing. Mm-hmm. You want to be at like but for you having yaks and having them out on grass and grass finishing them and now starting to make money from it, hopefully making, money for yourself, good income for yourself, then you are living according to nature because you're free of those contradictions.
Oh, this is very interesting. I'm seeing, man, you're showing my ignorance. I thought like you were telling me earlier that you probably don't know shit, and I'm like, whatever, Scott. I know a little bit about Stoicism. I was thinking that in my mind. I didn't say that, but I'm glad that I didn't, because now I really see how that all fits with me. I'm learning, so I'm really excited that when light bulbs get lit up, I get excited about it.
Yeah, I like it too. I feel the same way. Like for me, I've just been kind of really deep into this, thinking about it like every fucking day for like 6 months now, right?
Yeah.
When I go into like I have a personality trait where like if I'm going into something, I go fucking hard. Like I have one speed forward, and it's gonna be as fast as I can hopefully do it. You know what I mean? But so yeah, when I fell down, like I said, I tripped down that rabbit hole and fell into it. But there's definitely. Like there's a whole bunch of different parts, and it's like, where do you start with? What do you do? And like, if all someone wanted to take out of it was the dichotomy of control, that would be awesome. If you just learn that like some things are outside of your control, and that like you're not gonna let if it rains on your picnic, you're not gonna get upset about it, and things like that. That would be a really good way to live your life. But if you start looking into all these other things, like to be courageous and like the virtue of like courage and stuff too, we could talk about that. Like they each obviously have their own different things, right? But like the discipline of courage is to take the right action. Like it's courageous to take the right action. So we're not talking about courage in like the sense of like being at a battle. Like, obviously that's what we probably think of when we're thinking of courage, right? That like I'm going to be fucking brave and like smash all these motherfuckers because they're trying to break into my house or something, right?
Right.
But what it actually means is courage to take the right action. So it could be going to work to a job you fucking hate because you have a wife and kid and they need to eat, right? That's courage. Not drinking if you have a fucking drinking problem. That's courage, right? Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
So
it's not necessarily, hey, let's go fuck shit up and do crazy things.
yeah, like when I think of when I think of courage, I'm just like, oh yeah, if this guy tries to rob me, like I'm gonna be fucking brave and punch him in the teeth. Like, but that's not necessarily what it is, right? It's a little bit more complex than that.
Right, it's like it's facing the struggle, right? And
Yes.
and
To action, though.
punching
To
somebody and
action.
getting in a fight is a struggle to an extent, but it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and I
No.
like that to action too. So not just
Everything has to be to action. Like everything has to default onto action. There's another part like that I'm not kind of not that I'm qualified to speak on any of this shit, but that like I don't really understand too much though, but like but yeah, it like justice and courage, those two virtues, those are in the ascent of action. Oh shit, I should go get Massimo's book and look it up. But yeah, those are to action. Like those are supposed to drive you to action, and it's supposed to be action to do the right thing, to be good, to be virtuous, to have excellent character. So that's what I think a really big thing with Stoicism is, because you have to default on taking action. Whatever you do, you have to default on taking action. Like if I don't know, you just can't sit there and have a fucking sad little party because the goats knocked those things off. You have to go out there and milk those goats, right? So like today you're sitting there thinking about stuff, but you could have easily have been like, okay, like these goats are outside of my control. Like I can't help them, but you could have just went and been like, but fuck them. Like, you know what I mean? You could have just left them there and walked away, but you need to default on action, being persistent, staying there, and being courageous, because those goats need to get milked. Right? Those goats need to get milked. You need whatever the money from the milk, the cash flow, or to eat, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that a lot. And that makes all of this it's getting me invigorated and excited. So I have a lot of thoughts coming through my mind. Hopefully I can articulate one path and go with it. But I think that I really like the emphasis on action, because that's where I know that I can get bogged down, because I can figure out how, like, what I need to do. It's pretty easy to make a plan for me. Like I know, I want to sell yak meat, so I need to raise this animal, get it to the slaughter at a certain point. You know, I got to do all these steps. I know it, but the hard part is like getting the steps. And this is not a hard part for me to do. Dealing with the yak is pretty easy, but there's other things. There are other things that I'm thinking of.
Oh no, I know what you mean, man. Like even with my farm and stuff, like today I have to go plant. Actually, this is a good example. Last night I had to go plant. Okay? So I have like 3 beds of lettuce and 3 beds of other stuff that I need to go plant. So last night I needed to go plant. Came home from work. Honestly, I was fucking tired. I was like, I'll do it in the morning. So this morning I went out there, rototilled the beds, and I was like, I'm fucking tired. Right? So now I was like, oh yeah, I'll just do it, like whatever. I'll just do it afterwards. I get off this podcast with Nick, right? But now I've got called into my work. So I should have just been courageous before though, and defaulted on action of planting my stuff, because that's the right thing to do in that situation. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that I want out of having my farm. I want to obviously make an income for myself, but also like I want to supply my community with good food, right? If I get to take over my property and farm full time, it would be much better than the commercial dairy operation that's currently taking our field, like massive tillage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? But none of those fucking things can happen if I don't go and plant those lettuces.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like you have to default on the action of, you have to default on action. You have to default on action. I think that's really big. You can't default on sitting there. You have to default on action. And this is something I've been thinking about too, is that like, I think a lot of people, and this has nothing to do with Stoicism, this is just my own bullshittery, but like a lot of people, I think, people are like, oh yeah, like Scott, you get a lot done, da 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 da, and like, but I'm really lazy. I am though. I'm really fucking lazy, but I still go out and do the shit that I have to do, even when I don't want to. Like I put out episodes when I didn't have any episode ideas. I sat there and recorded, and I was like almost crying a couple times because I'm just like, I can't do this. You know what I mean, though?
But I actually know that example perfectly.
Yeah, you have to default on the action of, like, if you make a commitment to doing your podcast or whatever, you have to default on the action of putting that podcast out, even if it's a shitty episode, or even if even if whatever you get wet because it's raining, right?
Yeah, right.
Planting those lettuces or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is something I've been thinking about a lot too, related to this is, I think that human beings are kind of adapted. We're adapted to struggle in a certain way. We're adapted to be hunter gatherers to gather food, and now in modern uh, day where I live in this extremely luxurious world, we have all of our basic necessities provided to us pretty easily. We're not focused on what am I going to eat. We're focused on other things. So you can kind of decide, do you want it to be make money? Do you want it to be have a, live a good life? Have a good character? Do you want it to be just super fun? You can choose. So you get to choose whatever you get to do. And I think that the kind of Stoic idea is at least in my mind, this is where I take my life, is try and make it as best as I can. Be a good, live a good life, and be a good part of the things that I'm doing. Have fun and do something is kind of where I'm at with it. And I think that it's so easy to kind of get, I guess, unmotivated or just kind of lose motivation for things. Like I find that it's just very quickly I can just be like, oh, I don't want to do that.
Oh yeah,
Because I don't really have to, right? But I'm like trying to, because I have all of my basic necessities. But what I'm trying to train myself to do now is to have that call to action as well. What do I feel like doing right now? Nothing. But what really matters to me? Is it being super comfortable and just getting to watch Netflix? No, I don't really find any pride in that. I don't really get joy out of it afterwards. But this farm thing I do, right? So I try to train. I'm trying to train that perception of who cares if I'm comfortable? Like, am I going to be happy about it tomorrow? That's that thing. Am I going to be comfortable because I'm resting after a hard day of work, or am I going to go outside and plant those vegetables?
Yeah, you're gonna be like,
So be happy tomorrow.
Like if I had those vegetables planted, I would be much more fulfilled than I am right now. You know what I mean? But instead, I just decided to not. I decided to be distracted with some other stuff, whatever. But I think that's good. What does having a good life mean to you?
That's a really good question. I've defined it a few different ways. I think really what it is at the very basis, what I'm looking for, I think in like the deepest part of my soul, I don't really know, but I think this is what I'm looking for is a life that I can look back on and say, hey, good work, and that was fun. I want to be doing fun things and be putting out effort. I want to be challenged. Like, I don't want everything to be hunky-dory and be fantastic. Part of me probably does. I want that comfort. But, truly, I think what I want is something that's fun but hard,
Yes, for sure.
So that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then I think,
that's cool.
As we tease that up, I'm looking for accomplishment. I want to say, hey, I did that. And I want to have a family. Like, that's those sort of things. You can tease it up, but the hardest core, I guess, that the deepest core, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, just to live a life looking back of no regrets.
Yeah.
Like, everything might not go to plan or whatever, but yeah, definitely. I don't want to look back. Like, if I look back on my life, I just want to know that I fucking tried. That's what I want to know. I want to know that I tried really hard. Like, because that's the only thing that you can control is your effort. That's it. So if you don't fucking try, if you don't default on action, you're just wasting, just literally wasting, doing nothing. And I say that a lot about people. Like, it's really funny because and just different friends and stuff, they'll go out to the bar every weekend and go to do different stuff, go to concerts every week. Like, it's everybody's fucking birthday every single weekend, right? There's something to do every single weekend. And I'm just looking at these people and I'm like, you're doing nothing. And it sounds dumb because I just said that they're doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? I just listed off 10 things that they're doing, but I just don't know how that fits. And I'm sure I'm judging them, right? But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because I hear, because I'm at the age where my friends are, getting out of high school, going to college, and getting jobs, so they can actually go out and do stuff. We're adults now, so we can go out and party. And I get to hear some stories because I'm out here in the woods. I'm trying to make this business thing go and do these weird little projects. Nobody's like, well, what is Nick doing? He dropped out of school, and so people come back to me when I see them every once in a while from high school. I'm like, Like, oh, how you been doing? I've been having fun. And we kind of shoot the shit, and it always comes back to, well, what am I doing? I'm out here in the woods doing these things, not making money. But all these, and then they get to tell me all these stories. But and I'm sure, like, hey, if that's the life you want to live, like, I'm trying not to be judgmental when I think about it and when I talk to these people.
Yeah, I try not to be either, but I am.
Well, because to me, it just seems like kind of an empty existence. Like, oh, you
Yeah,
get to go, you meet a lot of women and you have a lot of fun getting drunk, but like, what are you going to be able to look back and say, hey, that was great? Because when I hear stories from older people who did that, it's like, yeah, it was fun, but what really matters is are these things that I'm doing now.
Yeah, totally. Like I got stories and shit, and but like when I look back on my life, I'm not thinking about if somebody asks me like, what are you most proud of? The girls that I fucked doesn't come into those like, you know what I mean? It's how I've treated other people, and the things that I feel worse about are the times that I treated people bad, like the times that I was just like a piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to eliminate those. I know that I'm not going to fully eliminate the times that I treat people badly or whatever, but I want to definitely make them as little as I can.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like, I think if you're I don't really know, this is kind of talking shit, but it kind of seems like to me that if you're going to um, go after anything in life, you want to have that kind of foundation. Like that's where you have to kind of start off, and that's where you can kind of bring in, or that I guess you're more likely to decide, I'm going to follow this sort of philosophy, something like Stoicism. And I think Stoicism is a really powerful one because it focuses on that. That the obstacle is the way and that you can do something about it. It's like you focus on your sphere of control. It's not just that, oh, you can't control these other things, but it's that you can control yourself, right? You have the option, right?
Yeah,
it's your choice.
You always have the ability to act with virtue. You always have the ability to be a good person, to be morally good. Even if all this other shit is tearing down around you, other people can't take that. Other people can't take away your ability to act with character. And that's what Stoicism is all about, is to act with character. Like, even if you're in jail and people are telling lies about you and spreading shit or whatever, like, they can't take away how you're going to act. And that's what Stoicism really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really powerful that to hold on to that, I guess. It seems like I'm trying to think of how that phrase is, but man, I guess I'm trying to explain that. I'm just having a hard time. I guess the idea is that you only, I don't know. I feel like for me, like the very basic twos, like I don't want to have regrets, right? I want to look back and say that was great and part of it is I want to live every day the best way I can, and I'm not the best at it, right? I can preach to you about all this stuff, but I'm still trying to get it under control. But it seems like what else am I going to do with this time? And you can make any decision. Like, I don't want to say I have the objective path. Like, this is what you should do with your life. Become a yak farmer, study Stoicism and nonviolent communication, and all these other different things, and you'll be happy someday, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that it makes a lot of sense to pick out what do you want to do in life, figure that out, and then find tools that really help. And I think that it seems to me that Stoicism has been the most powerful tool for that. Mm-hmm. And now I'm realizing I've been missing pieces to it, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's cool, and especially when they're good pieces. Especially when it's like it's not like, oh, guess what, we have to do bad things now. No, it's cool. Like, once you get into it, and there's a whole bunch of different, like, it's hard because like, even like the discipline, courage, wisdom, and they all have like Greek words, and then they don't translate very well from like ancient Greek into English, like modern day English, which is why we say like virtue when it actually could mean like excellent character, which is probably a easier way for like you and I to understand it. Like, I definitely was for me, and it sounds like for you too. Like, saying to have an excellent character is better than saying virtue, right?
Right.
Like, the 4 qualities of having an excellent character are wisdom, courage, discipline, and justice. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we go over those again? Because I don't remember. I don't remember
Yep.
any of what they. I know what courage is. I guess we kind of went over that. But yeah, could we go over each one of those and kind of explain?
Yeah, to the best of with the caveat on it that it's to the best of my knowledge, which is still like it's still fresh. You know what I mean? It's still like yeah. But wisdom is like wisdom is doing that's like do you know that the fruit salad wisdom thing? Have you ever heard of that? It's not Stoicism.
So. No.
Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. Okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, and just for listeners, a tomato has seeds inside of a juicy pulp. That's what a fruit is. So, yeah, wisdom is the ability to choose the correct thing, to apply what you know, right? So obviously, to apply all the different concepts of your life and everything that you've ever learned, that's going to help you have a good character, right? Mm-hmm. Courage, like I said, it's supposed to default on action. It's like it's the courage to do the right thing at the time for whatever it is, right? So that could mean not drinking. It could mean going to work, right, to a job that you hate. It could mean getting into a fight. It could mean standing up for yourself. It could mean like that bravery, courage that we think of like fighting, right? Justice is how do I want to say it? Like, it's not about following the law. It's not like law justice. It's about doing the right thing, right? So, there was a whole bunch of ancient Stoics and stuff that got exiled or got condemned to suicide, and they were acting with justice, even if they might have been going against like the laws. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's like to act to do good for you or whatever your cause is, because obviously like if me and you were on different we had different religions or we're on different sides of a battle or something, we could both be acting stoic, right? We're both gonna be thinking that we're doing the good. We're just thinking that we're doing the good for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then self-control. Self-control is like the discipline. That's so that you can always that one I'm kind of confused about still, but it's like so you can act well, right?
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It could, like, have the wisdom to know what's right, or know how to apply it, I guess. Justice is kind of knowing what's right. This is simplifying it. And then courage is having the bravery to use it, and then self-control would be
Self-control is not giving into like discipline and self-control. That's not giving into your vices. So anything that's not a virtue is a vice, right? So yeah, that's what that means. I just all clicked.
Yeah,
but
perfect.
Yeah, so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that a lot. Those I think those are very helpful. And I'm going to listen to this show again and take more studious notes than I have. But I'm gonna try to remember that, because I like that kind of framework of excellent character. And I like right now I can't think of anything I would like add to it, because it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like that's what they believe. This is what the Stoics believe, right? The ancient Greeks. Obviously people nowadays pick and choose whatever they want, and it's really hard though, because people are talking about like there's that lowercase s Stoic and uppercase s Stoic thing that gets muddled, and like I'm super guilty of it too, right? I did it before. Didn't really know the difference or whatever, and like I've pretty much done all the same shit that I think a lot of people have done, which is like find out that there's 3 different parts and like just be like, this is fucking stupid, right? Reject it. And like I'm not gonna read books, and then I did read books, and I'm like, oh, this is why I'm supposed to read books. So things make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, perfectly. I really like that, and I think it makes a lot of sense to me. Mm. This is reinvigorated my love for Stoicism. It's always there, but like every once in a while it sparks up, and I have to study it more. So, oh man, I'm gonna be on a kick of this. This will be fun though. Good. I'm glad.
Good. Yeah, I think that for like here, I'll give you a whole bunch of books to read. You're gonna want to read. I think that Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman is a really good book for a couple of reasons. It it's like a daily devotional type thing where they present a quote of the day. One of the reasons I really like it is because the guy Stephen Hanselman, he did all the translation work, and I think they're the best translations that I've ever read. They're just like when I read Epictetus, especially, it's like it doesn't translate very well into like modern day English, and like same with these other guys, right? Depending on like what translation you use, but like that book I think has easily the best translations just based on my ability to comprehend it. And then after the quote, Ryan will write like a paragraph or two about like what it kind of means, and like he does his little traditional thing of like he uses other people's stories, right? Whereas like on my show I'm using stories from my own life. He uses stories from everywhere else, right? From famous people throughout the world, just to make it easier to understand. So I think that's a really good one. And they have like at the very beginning, like a little history of Stoicism, and each month is broken up into a different heading. So like one will be about discipline, one will be about da 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 da. I can't remember them all right now. Massimo Pigliucci wrote a book that just came out a couple weeks ago. It's called How to Be a Stoic. It's good. He goes a lot into talking about the different he does, I think, the best job of breaking down like those three different areas into English, like logic, physics, ethics. He talks about them being metaphysics and epistemology and all this stuff. And it's really interesting. He kind of went in deep 3 years ago, I think. And so he's been like a practicing Stoic for 3 years. So it's like what he's learned and how he started to apply it. And I think he gives like 12 examples in his book about how to use it. But that one's good too. It's nice and short and it's easy. And then Donald Robertson wrote another book, and it's kind of halfway to being an academic book. And it's called I think it's called Stoicism and the Art of Happiness. And it's a good book. That's kind of, I would say read Ryan's books, read Massimo's book, and then read Donald's book. I think that would just be the easiest way to comprehend them all. But obviously you should just fucking read the old guys, right? If you can, if you like to read that. But the other ones, it definitely puts a little bit of context in. Otherwise you're just jumping all around, and it's a lot to read and it's a lot to think about and a lot to learn. So, I mean, it's crazy, but it's cool. It's neat once you get into it and start to just learn more, right? And like now I still feel dumb talking about it because like once you start learning about something, you feel like you know less, right? Like when I first started my podcast, I knew that I didn't know that much. And now that I have been doing it for 6 months now, I think I'm like, oh man, it's just so much bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah. It's those things, like you get to a point, you learn a little bit and you're like, maybe you feel still that you don't know a whole lot, but you learn a little bit more and you might get a little bit more confident, and then you learn more and more and more. And the more you go, you just realize, oh, yeah, you just don't
for sure.
know it all.
But even like doing this with you, this really helps me too, because like when I have people on my show, they know more than me, so I'm asking them questions, and like I don't really get to have a conversation, like a dialogue with anyone ever, like longer than like an Instagram message or like an email, right? So this is good because it helps me like flush things out, and then I'm like, oh yeah, fucking discipline, so you don't give in advice, right? That makes sense. Yeah, so it's neat, and like I don't really get to talk about it with people, so it's fun.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I really like it. I think it makes a lot of sense, right? You learn the best if you're teaching.
Yes,
right?
But you also have to get your skills to a place where you can articulate it properly.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's all this kind of learning, and it's all part of the training thing. Right?
It is. Yeah, like last time I didn't know that much, and like I was listening to it afterwards and stuff, and I was just like, oh man, I feel like I kind of like misrepresented it a little bit, and I kind of feel bad about that because I'm pretty sure that I already have. Actually, I know that I already have like the #1 podcast about Stoicism. Like I know it's got the most downloads and shit. But I want to have the best show. Like I want to have the best content. I don't want I'm okay with having mistakes and maybe saying the wrong word or like being like, oh, one episode where I was like way off, but I don't want to be putting out bad content because like I want to have people to trust me, but I also want to I want to be real, right? I don't want them just to believe that they can trust me. I want them to actually trust me because I'm putting out good work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel a responsibility to learn about all this stuff, and I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the challenge of it. Yeah, I think that yeah, you're fulfilling that niche that very few people are there, right? You have, you're kind of competing with Massimo Pigliucci. That's
Yeah, but his podcast is not.
it's not about stoicism, right?
It's not really about stoicism. It's about philosophy, right?
I think so. I've listened to a few episodes.
I haven't listened to his at all, actually, like, honestly. But I just, like, when I first, I went on the podcast app on my iPhone or whatever, and I listened to every single show that had a stoicism in the title, or had Stoic in the title. Yeah, I listened to them all because I was like, fuck it, I gotta see what people are doing, right? There wasn't actually that many. No. Like, Brett Veinotte had like 4 shows on it.
Yeah.
There was some. Yeah, if you're interested in the history of it, Nick, there's a really, really, really good one. If you
this?
No, it's the BBC. It's the BBC one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the best history of Stoicism one that I've heard so far. It's really good.
Cool.
It's just, yeah, they have like 4 people on it as a panel, and they just kind of walk through the whole history of it, and it's super interesting. I'm totally not like, I don't know, I'm interested in history if it's like someone teaching it well, and this is totally done really well. So I like that. I don't know, just if you want to listen to it.
Yeah. I like learning about that sort of thing. It kind of gives me a background and it helps me understand. But,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I might check that out. Cool. Well,
Sweet.
Awesome. I guess I could press you more on some of these things, but I feel like I want to
let me read more.
Yeah, let me do a little bit more research, and yeah, I'm really happy. I figured you'd teach me something, but man, I thought he surely can't bring me anything too new. But now you did it, and I'm excited.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm happy too. I think, this is just way better than, like I said, I just kind of felt like, I don't know, I kind of felt like a fraud almost at the beginning because I was just like putting shit out, and I just had like such a shallow like knowledge. But I feel a lot better about it now, and now that I'm getting to like interview people and talk to people a little bit more, it just goes way faster, right? It's just like so yeah. It's neat. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And why don't you tell us where we can find all this, stoicmetal.com, and how to spell it too, because I confuse people sometimes.
STOICMETTLE. And you can find that anywhere podcasts are available. I have a website. I don't really use it because honestly, I've got my farm and stuff. I just focus on having a new show out every single Monday. And yeah, I have all the other stuff, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all those things. So yeah, if you want to hear the show, just type it in on whatever podcast player you're using, Stoic Metal.
Yeah, and your farm is Flavorful Farms, and it's spelled the weird way.
Yeah, the proper way, Canadian. yeah. It's Flavorful Farms. If you type that in on Google, it will correct itself for you.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
And I will link all that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.